As an introvert, I love being alone, but I don't love being alone in a creepy old house. Get it? Got it? Good. Let's take a look at some scary stories from our subscribers. And now back to our story. My father-in-law is a retired state trooper. He was offered a position as security at a new state-of-the-art hospital being built in our small town. It was his dream job. We even helped him pick out his outfit for the first day. My son was so excited to hear that Grandpa was going to be a security guard with a real police uniform and badge. Well, he was very disappointed when he saw that Grandpa's new uniform was navy blue instead of black, and he did get a real badge. The hospital was massive, mostly glass walls and automatic doors. It was also very expensive, but it was nothing compared to the hospital in Seattle, which cost $1.8 billion. My father-in-law loved his job and the people he worked with. I think he was really happy there because he stopped complaining about my cooking. A few weeks later, he came to dinner and told us about some weird things that were happening. First, all the clocks in the hospital were wrong. The digital clocks on the wall would say 11:35, and the analog clock in the lobby would say 11 o'clock. Second, he said the hospital was freezing cold. All the thermostats in the building were stuck on 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and you could see your breath in the hallways. Said that the maintenance guy was driving him crazy because he kept saying the hospital was up to code and the AC was working perfectly fine. The guy also told him that no one could ever get the temperature to anything above 70 degrees, and everyone just accepted that the hospital was just cold. He didn't find either of these things weird, just a little odd. One night he was driving home from work and noticed how bright the windows in the hospital were. He pulled over to take a picture. In the photo, you can see the glow from within the building. If you look closely, you can even see a shadowy figure waving at the camera. When he told us this, we thought he was joking until we saw the picture. The next weekend, we went to visit my wife's parents, and my father-in-law asked if he could show them the picture. He took the phone from my wife, showed them the picture, and said, "See? Isn't that weird?" As he handed her the phone back, they heard a knock on the door. My father-in-law opened it and said, "Just a minute," turned to grab the phone, and saw a woman standing in the hallway. My father-in-law was tall and broad-shouldered and used to people cowering when he entered a room. But he just stood there staring at her. She wasn't wearing a name tag, but she was wearing a crisp white nurse uniform and seemed very out of place. After awkwardly standing there for a minute, she said, "Excuse me, is this the residence of Mr. and Mrs. L?" Confused, my father-in-law asked, Speaking," she replied. "Mrs. Long requested I return this." She extended her hand, revealing a shiny silver tray with an ornate pocket watch on it. My father-in-law took the tray and looked around for a name tag or some kind of ID, seeing none. He asked, "Are you here to collect something from my wife's parents, or are you here to collect my wife's parents?" The woman said, "No, I am here to collect them." With that, she vanished. Before my father-in-law could say a word, the door swung shut and locked itself. Startled, he ran to the door and pounded on it, shouting, "What the hell?" But the only response was a click as the deadbolt engaged itself. He then remembered the key fob Mrs. Lang had given them for the electronic lock. Digging it out of his pocket, he pressed the button, opening the door and rushing inside. They were just sitting there talking about how hot the weather has been lately. My father-in-law must have looked stunned because Mrs. Lee asked, "Is something wrong?" My father-in-law explained what had happened and showed them the picture he had taken. Mrs. Lang reached for the phone, saying, "I need to call my daughter." She did, but the phone just rang. They left a message and hung up. Later that week, my wife and I picked up the pocket watch from my father-in-law. We thought it might be antique or valuable somehow, but it wasn't. It's a cheap, ugly thing you'd expect from Walmart. We couldn't make it work, but we could hear the faint tick-tock of its gears inside. The next day, my wife called her parents to see if they had heard back. Her mother answered the phone and sounded distraught. "Have you heard from your sister lately?" she asked. "No, not since Christmas," her mother replied. "We were worried because she hasn't called for weeks. Usually she calls every day. We were thinking about calling you to see if you've heard from her." They spoke for a bit, and then my wife hung up, confused. She was wondering why her sister wouldn't call them. 2 days later, they received a call from the police telling them that a missing person report had been filed for their daughter, Sarah. The police were surprised that they hadn't called sooner since she had been missing for over a month. And I mean missing as in disappeared. She just didn't show up for work one day and never called home. Now, what does any of this mean? It means nothing. These are all random events that happened and will happen independently of each other. No connections are meant to be drawn. Let's take a look at some scary stories from Reddit. This happened to me about 10 years ago while working security at a psychiatric hospital. My partner and I were doing our rounds and checking in on the patients, and we had just finished a round. So we were heading back to the office. As we were walking past the nurses' station, one of the nurses said, "Hey, where's Wilson? I haven't seen him all night." What? For those who don't know, Wilson was one of the patients, and he was known to walk off occasionally, and he was considered a danger to himself and others. So we split up to try to locate him. Instructions were to check the common areas, the day room, the library, the gym, and the courtyard, then go to his room and check if he was there. I headed to the gym first. It was empty, and then checked the day room and the library. Wilson was nowhere to be found. I decided to check his room to see if he was hiding there. His roommate was there, and he said no. He hasn't been back since lunch. I think he's outside now. The courtyard had a razor wire fence on the top, a locked gate, and a guard shack. The guard should have seen him if he had left. So I checked the cameras. Sure enough, Wilson had left, but he didn't leave through the main gate. The cameras show him running and jumping over the razor wire fence. I call the cops and we started searching for him. Meanwhile, my boss comes up behind me and says, "Did you search his room?" I tell him that I did. "Maybe he's hiding in the closet," he said. So I checked the closet, but it was empty. "How did he get out of here?" "The doors were locked," I said. "He didn't use the doors," she replied. "I told her I'd seen the tape. She took it from me and watched it." "Well, I guess that explains it," she said. We watched the tape as Wilson snuck up to the bathroom window, which was on the ground floor. But the problem was, that window was locked. The lock had a sensor on it, and it couldn't have been unlocked from the outside. She called Wilson's mom and told her what happened. But 10 minutes after I hung up the phone, she told me that Wilson had been diagnosed with schizophrenia a year ago, and he had a tendency to wander, and sometimes he talked to people who weren't there. He also admitted to hearing voices that commanded him to do certain things. He had been prescribed medication to control his symptoms, but he refused to take it. "Has he done this before?" I asked. "Oh yeah," she said. "He escaped a couple of times, but he always came back on his own. I hope that's the case here. But if you find him, please bring him back. Don't hurt him." About 15 minutes later, I saw Wilson's car down the road. I followed him to see where he went. I lost sight of him, but the road ended at the lake. So I figured he couldn't have gone far. As I was making my way back to my cruiser, I saw him sitting on the bank of the lake, dangling his feet in the water. I got out of my car and headed. I stopped going home. At first, it was fear. Then, it became something else. I started forgetting where I lived. Not just the address, I mean everything. The hallway, the number on the door, my bed. Gone. I'd leave the hospital after my shift and end up in the parking lot, just standing there, staring at my car. One night I opened the door and found a hospital bed inside. I slammed it shut and didn't look again. Been staying in the staff nap room ever since. No one notices. Maybe no one's supposed to. I don't think I exist in their system anymore. I can walk past the front desk and not be asked a thing. Swipe my card and the door opens, but my name isn't recorded.
Ow.
I'm like a ghost. In a place full of ghosts? Last week, I tried something desperate. I went into the ICU at 2:12 a.m. 1 minute before she usually arrives. I brought a mirror, set it up at the end of the hallway. And I waited. 2:13 a.m. Nothing. Then, lights flickered. A hum grew in the vents above. And from the edge of the mirror, her white shape appeared. She wasn't in the hallway, only in the reflection. She walked slowly, feet never quite touching the ground. The hallway behind her didn't match what was real. Different walls, different lights. It looked like an older version of this hospital, like something built decades ago, or maybe ... never finished. She stopped just behind me, still in the mirror, still not there. She leaned forward, whispered something, but no sound came out, only static. When I turned around, there was no one there. But my ears were ringing for hours. Later, I tried to pull up the mirror footage on my backup camera. It had been overwritten, not erased, corrupted. The file name had changed itself to Uwariel Ready Air, move I don't remember naming it that. Martha was the last person who still talked to me. Until 2 nights ago, she found me in the hallway. Her eyes were red. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. You need to stop watching her, she said. She watches back. I asked her what she meant. Martha hesitated, then handed me something. An old photo. Black and white, slightly burned at the edges. It showed a nurse, standing beside a bed. The same white uniform. In the bed was Martha, much younger, eyes open, staring in fear. She came to me in '89, Martha whispered. I saw her once, just once. And I never slept right again. I tried asking more, but Martha shook her head. She doesn't forget who sees her, she said. She waits. Then she walked away. I haven't seen her since. That night, I checked the hospital's blueprints. Out of panic, desperation, and I found something impossible. Between room 214 and room 218, there's supposed to be a room 216, but in real life it doesn't exist. The hallway goes 214, then straight to 218. No door, no wall indentation, no label. But the blueprint shows a full-size room, labeled Observation, Isolation. At 2:13 a.m., I went there. To the space between rooms, I pressed my hand against the smooth white wall, and it clicked. Not loudly, just a shift. A gentle release. The wall slid inward, and behind it a door. No handle. Just a window. Frosted glass, and something moved on the other side. I ran, not out of fear, but because. I think it was me on the other side. I didn't go back to the hidden door the next night, but it found me. At 2:13 a.m., the monitors flickered again. For a moment, all screens went black. Then one by one they turned on, but not to live footage, to footage of me. I was walking the ICU hallway, but I wasn't walking now. I was sitting at the desk, watching. But the screens showed me walking. Different nights, different outfits, and in each video, she was behind me. The white nurse, always a few steps back, never noticed. I scrolled back through hours of feeds. She was in every single night. For weeks, for months, maybe longer, and I had never seen her. I replayed a clip where I passed by the east wing window. The outside reflection showed her walking beside me. But there was no sound of her steps. No shadow. No ID. No name. That was when I understood something horrible. She wasn't just appearing now, she'd always been here. But now she wanted me to know. I returned to the wall between room 214 and 218. Pressed again. The panel clicked open. The hidden door waited. Same frosted glass. Same stillness. I raised my hand, and this time, the door opened on its own. Inside was a room frozen in time, dustless, quiet, pale blue walls. A single hospital bed, monitors, all unplugged, but still beeping. And in the bed, me. I was lying there, eyes closed, face pale, chest rising slowly, breathing, but asleep. Or maybe dying. I took a step forward, and that's when I heard her voice. Soft, inside my head. You never left. The lights flickered, and I saw flashes memories that weren't mine. Another hospital. Fire alarms, a crash, screaming, pain. Then silence, a long hallway, white walls. Endless, I turned back to run. But there was no door behind me, only a wall of mirrors. Each showing different versions of me. Some standing, some lying down, some looking directly back. One of them smiled. His eyes were black, hollow, like hers. I screamed, but the sound never reached my ears. Everything slowed, the lights dimmed. The room began to fold inward, like paper burning at the edges. And before everything turned dark, I saw one final image in the mirror. The nurse in white, standing beside my body, her hand on my chest, smiling. I woke up in a hospital bed. Daylight. Voices outside. Beeping machines. I sat up. My name was on the chart. The date said March 14th, but the year was wrong. The nurse walked in, white uniform, no badge. She smiled. Welcome back, she said. I tried to ask something, but no sound came out. She handed me a mirror. I looked into it, and what I saw wasn't my face. It was hers.